Warning: the following podcast, which contains strong language and mature content, is unsuitable for children or for the faint of heart. The subject matter discussed will be frightening and graphic in nature. Listener discretion is advised.
When you wanna hear about the paranormal, you get the Spooked Girls. True crime that makes you hypothermal. With the three Spooked Girls, stabby snippets will give you dreams. Tara and Jessica will make you along with the Spooked Girls. Bring on the slaughter, we on that haunted ground. The three Spooked Girls.
Hey there, Spooksters, and welcome back to another episode here on Three Spooked Girls. My name is Jessica, and as always, I'm joined by my favorite little elf, Tara.
Hey, Spooksters.
'Tis the holiday season, girly pop. Get with it.
I know. We just did Krampus last week.
We're very holiday coded here on Three Spooked Girls. And today we are going to be doing an episode of Papa Joe, and it will be holiday themed. So get ready for that. But before we talk about this case, if you want to hang out with us on social media, and why aren't you? Our handle is at Three Spooked Girls at all the places. You go, you can find us. We everywhere. We also have a Facebook group, which is quite wonderful and lovely. It is Three Spooked Girls Official. It is just a little slice of heaven on the internet. We've established that Facebook is for groups now. Be part of our group, because the more of you that are in there, the more content gets pushed around in there, and it's just great. And we have really good time over there. If you'd like to help support the show, you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/Three Spooked Girls, or hit the show notes for the link tree, which has everything that is Three Spooked Girls. And for little as $1, you can get a bonus episode every month. It's the last day of the month. We call it our all-tier episode. It's really great. We do really fun things. In November, like we've talked about, I tormented Tara with my real or fake laws. Tara does lots of different things. We have a lot of fun over there. So if you want more content, we also have a ton in our backlog over there. So check it out. 5 and up patrons do get ad-free episodes that drop the day before. So if you're jonesing for some Three Spooked Girls before Thursday, you can get it Wednesday. If you like to read, join our book club, because it's fun and we read cool books. And we have wrapped up for the year, but we will be announcing January's, I'm assuming, in the next couple of weeks. So definitely come and hang out with us. It's the last Sunday of every month for about a half an hour. We get together, we talk about the book, then we talk about other books we're reading. It's super duper fun. So with that, we're going to dive straight in to this Papa Joe episode. It is out of order. So if you were like, wait a second, we were just on season 2, Jessica, why are we jumping to season 3? That's because I Googled holiday episodes or Christmas episodes, and this is the only one that popped up. So season 3, episode 9 is titled My Merry Christmas.
I love it.
Just so that you guys know, Uncle Brian won't be with us this episode. So apparently, literally, Papa Joe gave him the holidays off. But we will see Mama Kathy. She will be making a brief appearance. So let's jump in. In the true Papa Joe intro fashion, the tagline was, "A Christmas day becomes a Christmas nightmare. Murder and a kidnapping." His opening quote is, "Patience as a homicide detective is everything. You can't get emotional. Look at the physical evidence. Listen to the people when they tell you things. It's going to be complicated. Murder always is." Thank you, Papa Joe. We are going back to yesteryear, December 25th, 1986. At 10:45 p.m., 18-year-old Chris Zimmerman decided to head home from his family's party. He'd been hanging out with his family all day and was really excited to get home and talk to his roommate, a man by the name of Donald Ott. and show him all of the gifts that his family had given him, because they were two young guys living in a bachelor pad and anything and everything to add to this little janky place. Because, you know, we all have been at one point in time, at least I think, in a in a young man's bachelor pad, and you're like, wow, you have a couch that is duct taped and that is a folding table holding up your TV. That's the scene I'm setting here. So like I said, Chris's roommate, Donald, is a 20-year-old, and Chris describes Donald, I should say, as easygoing, carefree, fun, kind of the life of the party, just really an all-around nice guy. One of the first things that Chris notices when he arrives home is that the door is unlocked, and that is not normal for them. They might be young, but they're not dumb, so they normally lock the door. He walks in and he sees Donald slumped over on the couch, and he's like, fuck, Donald's playing a joke on me. Like, what the hell? And he literally goes over and is like, dude, what the fuck? He thought, because Donald looked blue, like in the face, like he looked bloodless, I guess. He thought Donald had painted his face to prank him. But it wasn't until he got close that he saw all of the blood and realized that Donald was not pranking him, but was in fact dead.
Oh, okay. Hence why Papa Joe is here.
Right? Because otherwise, like, what are we doing? Unless you thought this story was going to be that Donald scared Chris shot Donald. That's not where this went. So Chris does what a normal person would do if they came home and they found their roommate deceased. He calls 911. They send out police and EMT. They did confirm that Donald was deceased. And they were like, okay, this is obviously a homicide. Well, actually, at first, they thought it was a suicide. That at least that's what Chris thought it was. But they were like, we need a homicide detective to come in and verify. So Papa Joe, after spending a wonderful day with Mama Kathy and their children, are sitting down. He and Mama Kathy are cuddling on the couch, having some eggnog, just kind of, enjoying a boozy evening with one another and just relaxing in that great time of the year. When the phone rings, because there was a murder. So Papa Joe gotta Papa go. So he gets up and heads over to Donald and Chris's house. And it doesn't take him very long, less than 10 minutes. And Papa Joe realizes when he starts talking to the very first officer that he comes up to that he is got some boozy breath.
Uh-oh.
And the officer leans in and is like, Joe, like, dude, you smell like, and he's like, I had eggnog. So he gives the guy some money and is like, go get all of the coffee you can for this amount of money. The officer leaves and he goes inside and he kind of like looks around, but then he comes back out and makes his way over to Chris and is like, hey, Chris, what's going on? Like, tell me what happened. And Chris goes, I think Donald killed himself. Chris says that the relationship with Donald and his family had been very strained as of recently, and he was not welcome at home for the holidays.
Oh, okay.
So Chris is kind of a sheltered boy. I want to point out that he has never had anything bad happen to him, which, good for Chris. Good for Chris. Like the way they say they're like, he's never seen a dead body. A lot of people haven't seen dead bodies, I want to point out. But he had never seen any kind of great violence. So the only thing he could wrap his mind around was this was self-inflicted, not that this was a homicide. And with the holiday season that has an uptick in depression, it kind of makes sense. But Papa Joe's got to go in and investigate and make sure. So he goes into the apartment and he says it's not well furnished. It's very cluttered. There's clothes all over the floor. There's dishes in the sink. There's a really sad string of Christmas lights hanging on the kitchen cabinets. It's a boy house. So he goes in and he sees the crime scene and they still have Donald sitting there. And so he's assessing the victim. There's a single gunshot wound to the head. It's passed through from the left to the right, and it was a large caliber gun, and it was at very close range. This was such a powerful shot that the top of Donald's skull was actually found in the kitchen, and they could see that the gun had come within an inch of the skull. Like that was the burn pattern. Donald's body position did suggest suicide because of how he was slumped over. But there was one other weird thing that Papa Joe clocked pretty fast was that there was a mark on his face that looked like he had been hit with a gun. And Papa Joe goes, how do you explain hitting yourself in the face with a gun before you shoot yourself? Like that's not really typically what you would see.
No.
Also, biggest of red flags, there's no weapon in the entire apartment. There's no gun.
Oh.
He has a gunshot wound to the head, nothing. So they rule out suicide, obviously. And because of the hit on the face, they could kind of tell that he had been like a little battered or bruised before. And so they're thinking that this was a torture before murder. So they canvass the building because he's in an apartment building looking for signs of struggle, and they can't find anything. However, the only thing that's really unusual is that the TV and stereo and some other electronic equipment from Chris and Donald's house is gone, which, you know, that's where a lot of young men put things, as they put it into gadgets. Like, they don't need a nice couch to sit on. They want the flyest stereo. At least that's what we're being told. So was this like a burglary gone wrong? Did Donald come home in the middle of this and they're like, what the fuck? So this is a place to start, but nothing indicates forced entry. There was no signs of like, you know, the lock being picked, none of that. So he asked Chris, like, does Donald have any enemies? Like, what's going on? And he's like, no, look, Donald is very hardworking. He's a sweet guy. He actually works down the street at a local diner. And they go and investigate at the local diner. And this is like really quickly. Like Joe goes from like the apartment and he goes straight to the diner and he talks to the cashier that gave a suspect. Apparently, a few days earlier, a man came in and was robbing the place, and Donald kicked him in the back and knocked him down and subdued him until the police came. So Papa Joe is like, is this payback? Could this be this man trying to get revenge? So we learn that the man in question is Dion Heary. And wouldn't you know that Papa Joe knows the reputation of Dion because he's actually arrested him several times for other things.
Oh, okay.
He a bad, bad man. Papa Joe thinks Dion could commit this type of crime for payback, especially if he was really pissed that, you know, he had been foiled. Papa Joe says violent crimes occur when emotions overtake judgment. So Papa Joe does the smart thing and he calls over to the county jail to see what had happened with Dion. Well, wouldn't you know that Dion has been sitting in jail this entire time. He is currently in jail. Well, not currently, like now time, but in the storyline, he's still in jail. And he has had 0 visitors. And they're like, okay. But also, because Dion is kind of a douchebag, let's be real, to people. Obviously, he was robbing a diner. He got into a little scuffle in the jail and they put him in isolation. So he has no one to communicate with. So Papa Joe is back at square one. So he has to go talk to the Ott family. They're just stunned. Like, they knew that they were having fights and everything, but they never thought this would happen. They couldn't even like fathom when the mom and dad came to the door. The mother was standing there, and when Papa Joe told her, she fell to the ground. And then the dad is obviously very distraught, and he's trying to like help her up. He can't. Papa Joe actually has to get down and hold them both, like hug them for a minute, and then help them up. And then they go in and they're so emotional, which is like rightfully so because they've lost a child. And like, I could understand losing a child would be traumatic anyway, but losing a child that you were on the outs with without being able to like reconcile probably hurt more, you know, because there's this like sense of like, oh my God, they left this world with this unresolved between us. We now meet Donald's brother, Daniel. He said that it hit him like a ton of bricks and he just felt empty. When Papa Joe asks if anyone would want to hurt Donald, the family actually replies very quickly, unanimously. They say Lonnie. And Papa Joe is like, who the fuck is Lonnie? You know, like he doesn't say fuck, but because he's Papa Joe and he's very respectful. But Jessica says fuck, so.
So we saying it.
So who the fuck is Lonnie? Lonnie is Leonard Michael Davis, who is a local drug dealer. Lonnie has made threats saying that if Donald opens his mouth about Lonnie's business, he gonna kill him. And that's interesting because Donnie had made those threats that day at Christmas. And you're like, how does Donald and Lonnie know each other? Well, they're brothers. They're half brothers. So that would be why they know each other and why Lonnie is like, what the fuck? Lonnie had thought Donald had snitched on him because Donald had been telling people where he lives and that he rips people off, and that Lonnie was really upset and wanted revenge. He's described as 5'11" with huge hands and huge arms, and he was described to be very frightening in appearance. The family was afraid of him, and Lonnie liked to hang out at like a seedy motel. You know what I mean? Like not the up and up kind, the kind that you pay by the hour.
What a stand-up guy. Yep, this fits.
Right? Daniel, the other brother was like, he likes to hang out here. This is the place that he hangs out. They go in, they talk to the front desk guy. The front desk guy was like, oh yeah, he in room 5.
How about it?
Because you run a seedy motel, you cooperate with the police.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? You're like, I got you. Papa Joe and the other cops they like open the door. They're like, hey, open the door. He opens it and they arrest him. Less than 15 minutes later, they're in an interrogation room and Lonnie starts talking to Papa Joe. Papa Joe tells Lonnie that Donald has died and he has a genuinely surprised reaction and is visibly upset that his brother is deceased. And so they're like, is Lonnie the killer? Doesn't really seem like it. He seems real sad that his brother is dead. So they start investigating, like, why are you mad at your brother? Why are you saying this shit? Well, we come to find out, Lonnie is a dick of a drug dealer. He cuts his cocaine with baby powder.
Stop. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. And apparently people complained to Donald about Lonnie's behavior, and Lonnie is like, stop telling people my business. But Donald is like an up and up guy. And so he's like, yeah, no, he lives here. Go talk to him. Like, won't probably get the fuck out of my job, like my diner. So they ask Lonnie, is there anyone particularly upset at you that might want revenge for some drug deal that you've done? And he goes, well, there's this dude named Kurt. And they're like, well, what's up? What'd you do? And he goes, well, I kind of ripped him off. They find out that he was like, give me your money. I'm going to count it here. I'm going to go get your Coke. And Lonnie just left. He didn't come back with the Coke. He just took the money. Left Kurt just sitting there waiting for his Coke. So Kurt was rightfully pissed off because he's like, I just gave him I think it was like $150. He gave him $150 worth of Coke or for money for Coke, and Lonnie just walked away. Well, Papa Joe is like, look, I can't obviously let you go because we don't know if your story checks out. You could be the killer and spinning a very clever story. So they lock his ass up. Well, while they're there, mind you, it's like still the night of Christmas. Papa Joe says that the CSI team contact him because they've gotten a phone call at Donald's place. When the police answered, a woman who was in distress was like, is Donald there? Like, what's going on? She was calling to check on Donald because, quote, she thought he may have been kidnapped.
Oh, why would she think that?
Well, we're gonna find out. So the woman is Donald's girlfriend. Her name is Angie Massell. I'm probably saying her last name wrong. I'm sorry, but we're going to call her Angie. And she was worried that he had been kidnapped, and here is why. So Papa Joe goes to Angie's house and meets Angie's mom and meets a man by the name of Dennis Galpin. And they're all very, very upset. They're like, something could be wrong. They say that Donald had spent Christmas with them, but at some point during the day, a man called and asked to speak to Donald. His name was Kurt. Everything coming up, Kurt. Kurt was trying to find Lonnie. Donnie was like, hey, let's just try to make amends. Let's figure this out. So Donnie says, look, I'm going to help you out. And he is like, I'm going to meet you at the mall. There's a mall that's down the street from Angie's house. Can you meet me there and we'll talk about this? Kurt is like, sure. Angie has a weird gut feeling in her tum-tum. And she's like, hey, Dennis, since you're a dude, why don't you go with Donald to this meetup? And he's like, okay, I'll go. So Dennis drives him. They get there. There's only one other car in this whole parking lot, and it's a white truck. Dennis flashes his lights as prearranged, and the truck flashes back. And Donald gets out. He recognizes Kurt was driving, but there's an unknown passenger. So Donald gets out, and he and Kurt are talking, and they're about to solve this when the unknown passenger gets out and pulls a gun on Donald. Then they force Donald into the truck. Dennis is like, what the fuck? This was not part of the arrangement. He gets out. He's trying to be like, what the fuck? What's going on? And the gunman points it at Dennis and says, get back in your fucking car or I'll kill you. Preservation. Dennis got back in his car. The truck peels off. Dennis goes home because, mind you, this is 1986. There's no cell phones. There's no immediately call the cops. There's no filming it of any kind. So he gets home and he tells Angie, and Angie is like, oh my God, what do we do? And they're like, do we call the cops? But this is this kind of thought process goes through. Let's put it this way. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. Let's put it that way. They're like, Kurt knows our number. Therefore, Kurt knows where we live. Let's not call the cops just yet. Let's figure out what's happening. So they wait a little bit and then they call, and then all of this happens. So then they get the CSI guy, and then Joe goes to Angie's house. Angie's like, look, I don't know Kurt's last name. I just know that he is like real upset. But they do find a person that they know, and they run this person's name, or she has the address of someone, I should say, of a friend of Kurt's. And the house belongs to a James Eberhardt. And he has a criminal record. It's like, like listed out. And they're like, okay. And they run other known people living in the house. And there's a son named Eric who would be about the same age as the other passenger. Because James is older, but Eric would be kind of the right age range for this. Eric also has a record. So they're like, maybe we should go do this. So they go over to James's house. Papa Joe goes and gets a warrant. Mind you, this is like early morning of like December 26th. So he gets a warrant and then he goes and knocks on the door and he's like, James, or Jim as they refer to him, as they're like, where's Eric? And he's like, he's in Michigan or someplace like that, like Wisconsin. And they're like, what the fuck? Where is he? And at this moment, because they like, he's not participating. So they kind of like come in and they pin him against a wall. And there's like a hallway that James can like face the hallway. And so like, where is Eric? And he's like, he's not here, man. They're like, what do you mean? And he's like, where is he? And his eyes keep shifting to this door at the end of the hallway. And they're like, who's behind the door, Jim? And he's like, no one, obviously. And they're like, shit, is there someone there? Is he armed? Because obviously the guy had a gun before. Real high anxiety moment. So Papa Joe and crew bust through the door and they tackle a dude and take him into custody. And who is this man? His name is Brian Patrick Moore. So not Eric, because Eric is legitly in Michigan or Wisconsin or Minnesota or someplace like that. He up in the Midwestern states, if you get my drift. So Papa Joe, they arrest him and they take him into custody. By the way, he is the unknown passenger that was in that truck. So Papa Joe starts talking to Brian. Brian says that he saw Kurt on Christmas Day, but Kurt left and that he did not leave with Kurt. He says he doesn't know Lonnie or he doesn't know Donald. He's never met them. And he's like, okay, sit tight, dude. Because they also take James into custody. So Papa Joe switches places and goes and talks to James. James tells a little bit of a different story. He says that, because, you know, Papa Joe is like, look, dude, someone's going down for this shit. Do you want it to be you? Because we can make it you. So James is like, okay, this is what happened. Brian and Kurt killed Donald. He just like literally James just rolls on them.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. They killed him. Basically, what they said is that James wasn't there when it happened. He wasn't there when they killed Donald. But basically what it was is that James was at home and Brian and Kurt came back about 11, a little after 11 p.m. Actually, this is where the timeline is wrong. I feel a little wrong. I feel like it was earlier. But basically what ended up happening is that they find out who Kurt is. His name is Kurt Owazakowski, and he is a painting contractor. Brian and Kurt had become really close friends because Kurt is friends with Eric and James, and Brian was visiting James during this time. And Brian had only been in Colorado for 1 week.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. So basically, Brian and Kurt come home and they tell them what just happened. And James was like, shit, what the fuck? What is going to happen? And he's like worried about it blowing back on him. So he's like, look, we got to go back over there and you guys have to get every single fucking thing you touched. So they go over there. Brian shows Jim the gun that he used and he cleans it. He like wipes the fingerprints off of it and he hides it in his house. And Brian was like, man, like he sat down there and he was like, oh my God, what do I do? He's like, I killed that kid. So they go back over to Donald's house and they literally take anything they touch, which was all valuables, because what was happening, basically they forced Donald into the truck, into the cab of the truck. Brian gets out of the car. He's waving the gun around. He's like, get in here. They take him in. They take him back to his house, to Donald's house. And they're like, we got to figure this out. Brian is acting obviously crazy. He's got a gun. Kurt is like, dude, chill the fuck out. And basically we'll find out later that he was like, Brian was like playing with the gun the whole time, like cocking it and that kind of stuff. And they were going to take all this equipment as collateral. So this is why they were touching all of it. They weren't just like walking around touching shit. So then they left and Jim was like, okay, they basically stashed the gun. They took all that equipment and dropped it off at Goodwill's around the city, which, you know, I guess that makes sense. The police had to go around and locate all of it and they did. And then they retrieved the gun. So Papa Joe is like, okay, we know what you did. Brian doesn't think Papa Joe can arrest him for murder. He literally goes, you can't arrest me. And he's like, the fuck I can't. I got you, bitch. So now they have to find Kurt because he's part of this. So they put out an APB and they like do a manhunt. They put his picture on TV. Kurt turns himself in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, granted, he's kind of part of this, but I think he just kind of got caught up with a crazy person. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Kurt waives his rights and begins to talk. His story is that they had made arrangements to meet Donald. Brian was supposed to stay in the truck, but he was like eager to help. And Kurt says, looking back now, he was too eager. And while they were waiting, he was like waving the gun around and he kept acting like he was this big tough guy. He knew Kurt was upset and Brian kept cocking the gun. Kurt told Brian to wait in the truck. Donald gets out. They're talking. Brian goes off the rails. They're literally about to strike a deal to go find Lonnie and get the money back that Lonnie stole from Kurt. When Brian gets out with the gun and basically he's like, I don't know what was going to happen. Brian kept yelling, where's Lonnie? Tell us where Lonnie is. And he's like, I don't know where he is at the moment. I can tell you some places he might be, but I can't tell you where he is indefinitely or definitely, like for sure. Brian doesn't care. So then this is when they go back for the collateral. According to Kurt, Donald was cooperating 100%. In fact, Donald was making a list of everything that they could take that would equal the amount of money that Lonnie owed them, just in case they could never track it down. And then they could just keep the stuff and sell it. Brian just kept asking, where's Lonnie? What's going on? Why are you lying? Brian smacks him in the face with a gun and is waving it around. Brian is holding the gun on Donald. Donald like looks up to see what's going on and the gun goes off. And Brian was like, I shot him. I didn't mean to, but I shot him. And Kurt's like, what the fuck? Kurt says he doesn't think that Brian did it on purpose, but because Donald died during a kidnapping and theft, intent does not fucking matter. Just know that. So they're both charged with first-degree kidnapping, first-degree murder, first-degree burglary, and felony theft. Both pled guilty to second-degree murder. Kurt got 18 years, so he probably got out in 2005 or before. And Brian got 30 years, so he got out in like 2017. But the end line of this episode was evil never takes a holiday. It's quite a story.
It is.
I mean, obviously there's drugs involved. Brian, I think, was super like on drugs and was unstable. And he just was trying to prove that he was like this big tough guy and he was playing with the gun. They're unsure. Like, obviously we don't know if Brian meant to shoot Donald. I feel like it wasn't on purpose. Like, I feel like he didn't mean to kill him. But again, when you murder someone, even if it's on accident, like, unless it's like truly an accident, like someone ran out in front of your car, like, but if you're holding someone at gunpoint and the gun goes off, that is really just kind of on you because we shouldn't be in that position in the first place. So that is our holiday episode of Papa Joe. Mind you, Papa Joe, they solved this case in under a week.
Crazy.
Right? It's literally insane. I was like, oh my God. And they literally went to trial, obviously, because they pled guilty. Like, they were sentenced, like, I think before March or April of the next year. So Papa Joe is pretty amazing at this. And I really hope he's an educator and he educates people. That's what he really should be doing, is teaching law enforcement how to close cases. Because think about it. He did this in the 80s when there was no social media. Mm-hmm. Imagine what he could have done with social media.
Literally.
So that's going to go ahead and wrap up this case. We hope that you guys have enjoyed the Papa Joes. Definitely we'll do more in 2026. But yeah, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. And we will see you back next week for another episode here on Three Spook Girls. Toodles.
Bye.